Now, you may have already seen my video on the Chevy Cruze Eco, but this is the Chevy Cruze Eco, the much more fuel-efficient turbo diesel. Let's drive Chevy's entrant in the field of power plant America loves to hate and check its efficiency tech. Now, spotting a Cruze diesel is not easy. It looks just about like every other Cruze. They tell me it's got a subtle aero kit. I guess the chin's a little different. Beyond that, you gotta look for this little teeny tiny TD badge on the rump that makes a VW TDI logo look huge. In other words, this car doesn't scream, "I'm green," if that matters to you. Now, I'm not gonna spend a ton of time inside this Cruze because we've shot the Cruze Eco. Check out our in-depth video on that. Also, the 2014 Impala is a great deep dive on the Chevy MyLink radio. I'll let it suffice to say that navigation's optional, though display radio is standard with Pandora and Stitcher. Rear camera is also optional on this guy, which I find a little disconcerting. And beyond that, the fit and finish is nice. Leather comes on the diesel as well. That's going to be an interesting factor later in the story. But the big story is up there under the hood. Now, of course, the diesel engine is a big part of the story here. You don't often see diesels in America, let alone from an American car company. 2-liter turbo diesel. The turbo part's really obvious. Here's our little Garrett unit right up there, very plain to see. We also have direct injection going on here, which is what modern diesels all do. The numbers: 151 horse, 264 foot-pounds of torque. That last one is the whole point. Gets this roughly 3,400-pound vehicle up to 60 in about 8.6 seconds. That sounds pretty class average to me. Notice, the mileage is what's interesting. 2746. Hello, Dean. That's a nice number. A Cruze Eco gas gets 2639, average of 31. Cruze Turbo Diesel gets 27, a big 46 on the highway, but only averages 2 miles per gallon more average, 33. Annual fuel cost is only $50 less on the turbo diesel, but the MSRP is over $5,000 more because the diesel has 4-wheel ABS, remote start, leather interior, available with a sunroof, heated seats, and even more. So if you don't care about the extra equipment, the math is pretty harsh. It's a $5,000 delta paid off at $50 a year, over a century. Okay, so driving the little Chevy diesel, what's it like? Well, first of all, you don't hear most of that diesel clatter we heard under the hood. It's much better managed inside, so you're not going to find that it's, a rattle box. The torque is very muted. Once you get spooled up, it's there, but it's rather muted because I think this car is heavily tuned toward economy, and you're not getting a huge amount of great oomph down low. Just the way this car is engineered. That said, it has ample or at least sufficient power. I don't feel like this car is gutless, especially if you work the gearbox a little bit. That's not the idea, right? We're doing a really nice average MPG, and all of us on the car tech team were able to see at least the car's calculated 50 MPG on the highway pretty easily. Ride quality is real nice. Remember, it weighs quite a bit more than the gas engine car, and that does wonders for suspension plantedness, which I always like. Nice and quiet, sight lines are good on this car. It's a very livable everyday vehicle that is a little bit sluggish in transitions on the throttle because that diesel is not giving up its torque as much as it is being tuned for economy. I find that a little disappointing, but they are getting some good numbers out of this car. So in sum, what I say about this car on the road is that it's absolving a lot of sins that General Motors committed in the 80s. I mean, they're largely the reason that Americans hate diesels. They did some horrendous diesels back in the day, and Americans swore them off. Back then, you could get either a Mercedes diesel, that was expensive and for the rich people, or then there were these American diesels that were like, ooh. Well, this sets the record straight. General Motors can make a real nice diesel car and a nice price. All right, pricing our Cruze diesel, you got to know this guy does not start off real cheap. They have positioned it as a high trim model, as we discussed a little earlier. So $25,700 is your entry level. Then on top of that, a number of things to get CNET Style, one of which is this Convenience Pkg. That's how you get the rear camera and a bunch of self-adjusting mirrors, basically. I normally would bristle at a camera being an optional cost, but it's only $380 for the whole package, so I'll give them a pass. If you want driver assistance, rear sensors, cross-traffic alert, and blind spot indicators, it's $800. Sunroof, another $900. Navigation, as I mentioned, is extra, $795. It's not going to break the bank, and they do a pretty good job on these. All in, we're at just about $29,000 on the nose. Not bad, but notice, you've got to care about the high equipment level on this car to make it work out. Otherwise, you can never earn back the additional cost of this versus the Cruze Eco gas car. It just isn't going to happen unless you got a Century on your hands.